The morning sun of Nexus Prime cast long shadows across the Academy grounds. Thousands of cadets from every corner of the galaxy stood in neat rows waiting for the final test. This was the day that would decide their future in the Galactic Defense Force. Commander Veltar walked slowly between the lines of young beings. His blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights, and his forearms moved with practiced precision as he checked each formation. The Althorian had seen many graduation days, but something felt different about this cycle. Near the back of Formation 7, 3 humans stood together. They looked small compared to the towering Korthek warriors or the crystal-bodied Veldani nearby. Li Jiwan wiped his sweaty palms on his uniform and tried to calm his racing heart. "Stop worrying so much," whispered Park Soo-hyun from beside him. "We made it this far, didn't we?" Jiwan nodded but couldn't shake his nervous feelings. The other human, Kim Taehyung, stood silently with his eyes focused straight ahead. All 3 had come from Earth just 2 years ago when humanity first joined the galactic community. Now they were among the final candidates for the Defense Force. "Attention all cadets." Commander Veltar's voice boomed across the field. "Today you will face the ancient scanner. This device has tested every Defense Force member for over 10,000 years. It reads your genetic code, your mental strength, and your combat potential. Most importantly, it determines if you have what it takes to protect the galaxy." The cadets began moving toward a massive building at the center of the academy. Inside, the ancient scanner waited. Jiwon had heard stories about the mysterious device. Some said it was built by the precursors, an ancient race that disappeared long before any current species reached the stars. Others claimed it could see into a person's soul. The scanner room was huge and circular. In the center stood an arch made of black stone covered in glowing symbols. The symbols moved and changed constantly, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. Dr. Kang Min-hee, the Academy's head researcher, stood beside the device with her tablet ready. "The process is simple," she explained to the gathered cadets. "Walk through the arch one at a time. The scanner will read you and display the results. If you pass, you become a full member of the Galactic Defense Force. If you fail, you return to your homeworld to serve in other ways." The first cadet stepped forward. She was a Luminar, her energy-based body glowing softly blue. As she passed through the arch, the symbols flashed once and displayed a series of numbers on the screen above. Dr. Kang nodded and marked something on her tablet. "Cadet Zeladin, welcome to the Defense Force." One by one, the cadets took their turns. A massive Korthek warrior made the scanner hum loudly before showing his results. Twin Veldani siblings caused the symbols to spin rapidly as their crystalline bodies reflected the light. Each time, the scanner worked perfectly, displaying its readings within seconds. Jiwon watched nervously as the line grew shorter. Some cadets failed and walked away with disappointed faces, while others celebrated their acceptance. The scanner seemed to know exactly what to look for in each species. "Next," called Dr. Kang, it was Taehyung's turn. The quiet human walked steadily to the scanner and stepped through without hesitation. The arch glowed briefly, showed his results, and he was accepted. Soo-hyun went next, grinning widely as he passed through and joined the successful candidates. Now only Jiwon remained from his group. "Cadet Lee Jiwon," Dr. Kang called. Jiwon's legs felt weak as he approached the scanner. Every eye in the room was on him. He had trained for 2 years for this moment. Everything depended on the next few seconds. He stepped into the arch. The scanner activated immediately, but something was wrong. Instead of the usual brief flash, the symbols began glowing brighter and brighter. The humming sound grew louder, then became a high-pitched whine that made everyone cover their ears. "What's happening?" someone shouted. The display screen flickered wildly, showing numbers that changed too fast to read. The symbols on the arch spun rapidly, creating new patterns that seemed to pulse with their own life. The light grew so bright that cadets had to look away. Dr. Kang stared at her tablet in shock. "This is impossible. The readings are off the scale." Commander Veltar pushed through the crowd. "Shut it down! I can't!" Dr. Kang replied, frantically pressing controls. "It's not responding." Jiwon stood frozen in the center of the arch, unable to move. The scanner's energy washed over him in waves, and he felt something awakening deep inside his mind. Strange whispers seemed to echo from nowhere, speaking in a language he had never heard but somehow understood. The display screen suddenly stopped flickering and showed clear text. But it wasn't in any modern language. The ancient precursor symbols spelled out words that made Dr. Kang gasp. Bearer of the flame above the gods. Destiny confirmed. Alarms began blaring throughout the academy. Red lights flashed as emergency protocols activated. The scanner's light reached blinding intensity before suddenly cutting out completely, plunging the room into darkness. When the emergency lights came on, Jiwon was still standing in the arch, but he looked different somehow. His eyes seemed to hold depths that hadn't been there before, and the air around him shimmered slightly like heat waves. "Cadet Lee," Commander Veltar said carefully, "step away from the device." Jiwon moved slowly as if walking through thick water. The moment he stepped out of the arch, the scanner's symbols went completely dark. In 10,000 years of operation, it had never shut down like this. "Sir?" Dr. Kang whispered, showing her tablet to the commander. The scanner didn't malfunction. It recognized something. These readings. They match theoretical predictions from the oldest precursor texts. What kind of predictions? About a species called the Flame Bearers, beings capable of wielding power beyond normal understanding. Commander Veltar looked at Jiwon, who stood quietly while other cadets stared at him with fear and wonder. The human looked ordinary enough, but the scanner had seen something that changed everything. "Clear the room," the commander ordered. "Lock down this section, and get me a direct line to the Galactic Council." As the cadets filed out, Soo-hyun tried to approach his friend, but guards blocked his way. Jiwon looked back once, confusion clear in his eyes before being escorted away. News of the scanner's reaction spread quickly through secret channels. On distant worlds, ancient enemies stirred in their hiding places. The Void Collective, thought destroyed eons ago, felt the awakening across dimensions and began to move. The age of humanity's true destiny had begun, though none yet understood the terrible price it would demand. 3 days had passed since the scanner incident, and the academy buzzed with rumors. Jiwon sat alone in a special holding room, staring at his hands. They looked normal, but strange things kept happening around him. Electronic devices flickered when he walked by. The lights in his room dimmed and brightened without reason. Most disturbing of all, he could hear whispers in his head speaking words he didn't recognize but somehow understood. Dr. Kang Min-hee worked frantically in her laboratory, surrounded by ancient texts and holographic displays. She had barely slept since the scanner event, diving deep into precursor archives that most scholars considered myth. What she found made her hands shake as she read. The precursors had left behind more than just technology. They had left warnings. Commander Veltar entered her lab with heavy steps. His forearms moved restlessly, a sign of deep worry among his people. "Doctor, the Galactic Council is demanding answers. 3 council ships are already heading here, and they want the human transferred to their research facility." Dr. Kang looked up from her work, her eyes red from exhaustion. "They can't take him, Commander. Not until we understand what's happening." "Then explain it to me," Veltar said, settling into a chair designed for his large frame. "What did that scanner really find?" Dr. Kang activated a holographic display showing ancient precursor symbols. The precursors didn't just build the scanner to test military candidates. It was a detection system, designed to identify members of a specific species they called the Flame Bearers. "And you think this human is one of them?" "I think all humans might be," Dr. Kang replied quietly. "Look at this." She showed him translated text from a precursor archive. The words appeared in the air between them, glowing softly blue. "When the darkness returns from beyond the void, when reality itself faces unmaking, the Flame Bearers will rise. They carry within them the power that shaped the first stars, the energy that exists above the gods themselves." Commander Veltar was quiet for a long moment. "This sounds like religious nonsense, Doctor." "That's what I thought too, until I found this." Dr. Kang opened another file. "Technical specifications for something called the flame above the gods. It's not mythology, Commander. It's science beyond our current understanding. The precursors discovered how to access energy from outside normal spacetime." Meanwhile, in his holding room, Jiwon was experiencing his own revelations. The whispers in his mind were getting clearer. They spoke of ancient battles, of entities that existed before the universe began, of a war that never truly ended. He stood and walked to the small window that looked out over the academy grounds. As he watched, a training exercise was taking place. Cadets from different species worked together to overcome obstacles. It looked peaceful and normal, but Jiwon could see something else. Dark shadows that moved independently of their owners, ripples in the air that suggested tears in space itself, things that shouldn't exist but were definitely there. They're already here, he whispered to himself. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. 2 guards entered, followed by Dr. Kang and Commander Veltar. Cadet Lee, the commander said formally. We need to ask you some questions. Jiwon turned from the window. I know what you want to ask. The answer is yes, something has changed. I can see things that weren't there before. I can hear voices that speak in languages older than civilization. Dr. Kang stepped forward eagerly. What do the voices tell you? They warn of enemies coming from outside reality. They call them the Void Collective. Jiwon paused, struggling to put the alien concepts into words. These entities don't just want to conquer our galaxy. They want to unmake it. To return everything to the emptiness that existed before the universe began. Commander Veltar's skin darkened to deep blue, a sign of extreme alarm. How do you know this? Because the knowledge is inside me now. The scanner didn't just identify what I am. It activated something that was always there. Jiwon looked at his hands again. The precursors fought these things millions of years ago. They won, but at a terrible cost. Dr. Kang nodded. The precursors disappeared suddenly at the height of their civilization. No one ever understood why. They didn't disappear, Jiwon said quietly. They ascended. They became something beyond physical existence to fight an enemy that exists beyond physical reality. But before they left, they planted seeds. Seeds? Genetic potential in species throughout the galaxy. The ability to access the same power they used. They knew the Void Collective would return eventually. Jiwon's voice grew stronger. Humans aren't the only ones with this potential, but we might be the first to awaken it. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the academy. Emergency lights flashed red as Commander Veltar received an urgent communication on his device. Sir, came a panicked voice. We're detecting massive spatial distortions at the edge of the system. Something is coming through from, we don't know where. Through the window, they could see other cadets running for emergency positions. In the distance, several small objects appeared in the sky, moving in ways that defied physics. Jiwon felt the whispers in his mind become urgent screams. They found me. The scanner's activation was like a beacon. They know one of the flame bearers has awakened. Dr. Kang grabbed her tablet and began recording. This is incredible. We're witnessing the return of an enemy the precursors thought they had sealed away forever. Doctor, Commander Veltar said grimly, I need you to contact Earth immediately. If humans carry this potential, their government needs to know what's coming. One of the objects in the sky suddenly changed direction and headed straight for the academy. It moved through solid matter like it wasn't there, passing through buildings without damaging them. That's not possible, one of the guards muttered. It exists partially outside our reality, Jiwon explained. Normal matter can't stop it because it's not entirely here. He looked at the approaching entity with eyes that now saw far more than human vision should allow. But I can see it completely. And I think I can touch it. The probe entity reached their building and began passing through the walls. Other personnel ran in terror as the thing approached, but it ignored them completely. It was searching for something specific. It's looking for me, Jiwon realized. They want to study what I've become, or destroy me before I become a threat. Dr. Kang looked at her readings as the entity drew closer. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. This confirms everything in the precursor texts. Commander Veltar made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of evacuating Jiwon to safety, he stepped back and gave the young human room to act. Show us what you can do, cadet. Jiwon took a deep breath and reached out toward the approaching entity. The moment his hand made contact with its semi-solid form, light erupted throughout the room. The probe entity let out a sound like tearing reality before dissolving into nothing. In the sudden silence that followed, they could hear similar sounds from across the academy as other probe entities met the same fate, destroyed by a power they had no defense against. Jiwon staggered backward, exhausted but alive. That was just the beginning. The real attack will come soon. Far across the galaxy, the Void Collective felt the destruction of their probes and began gathering their full strength. The war the precursors thought they had ended was about to begin again. 1 week after the probe attack, Life at the academy had changed completely. Security was doubled, research teams worked around the clock, and most importantly, Ji-won was no longer alone in his transformation. The other two humans, Kim Tae-hyung and Yoon Sung-hee, had started showing their own unusual abilities. Tae-hyung could sense energy patterns that others couldn't see, while Sung-hee found she could make small objects move with her mind. Their abilities were much weaker than Ji-won's, but they were definitely there. Park Soo-hyun watched his friend during morning training exercises. Ji-won moved differently now, like he was aware of things happening in all directions at once. The other cadets gave him plenty of space, unsure whether to be afraid or amazed. "Try the combat simulation again," called instructor Velnok, a veteran Korthek warrior, "but this time use only standard techniques." Ji-won nodded and entered the training chamber. Holographic enemies appeared around him, armed with energy weapons and moving in coordinated attacks. Under normal circumstances, it would take skill and luck for any cadet to survive more than a few minutes. Ji-won lasted 30 seconds before his new instincts took over. Without thinking, he reached out with senses he barely understood. The gravity around him shifted, causing the holographic enemies to stumble. Energy blasts that should have hit him curved away at impossible angles. When one attacker got too close, Ji-won's defensive reaction sent it flying across the chamber. "Enough," Instructor Velnok called, ending the simulation. "Cadet Lee, report to Dr. Kang immediately." In her expanded laboratory, Dr. Kang was making breakthrough after breakthrough. The precursor archives had revealed the true scope of what they were dealing with, and it was both wonderful and terrifying. "The power you're accessing," she explained to Ji-won as he sat surrounded by monitoring equipment, "it comes from what the precursors called the quantum foundation. It's the underlying structure that holds reality together." "Is that why everything feels different?" Ji-won asked. "Like I'm seeing the universe from the inside out?" "Exactly. Most beings interact with reality on the surface level. You're beginning to perceive the deeper layers." Dr. Kang showed him complex diagrams on her holographic display. The precursors learned to manipulate these foundation forces, which gave them godlike abilities. But it came with a price. What kind of price? The more you use these powers, the less human you become. The precursors eventually transcended physical existence entirely. They became part of the cosmic structure itself. Commander Veltar entered the lab with urgent news. "Doctor, we've received a message from the Galactic Council. They're sending a full research fleet to study the humans. But there's something else." He activated a secure communication channel. The image of High Counselor Thexara appeared, her ancient features grave with concern. "Commander Veltar, Dr. Kang," the counselor said. "Our deep space monitors have detected massive disturbances at 17 different locations across the galaxy. Something is trying to break through the barriers that separate our reality from whatever lies beyond." Dr. Kang felt her blood turn cold. "The Void Collective. They're making their real move. Our scientists believe these disturbances are connected to the human anomaly at your academy. We need to understand this connection before it's too late." After the communication ended, Ji-won spoke quietly. "They're right to be worried. I can feel the disturbances," she mentioned. "They're like tears in a fabric that's already weak." "Can you tell us anything else?" Commander Veltar asked. "The barriers the precursors created are failing. They were never meant to last forever." Ji-won closed his eyes and concentrated. "The Void Collective has been working for millions of years to weaken them from the other side. My awakening was the signal they were waiting for." "Signal for what?" "To begin their final assault. They know that if enough flame bearers awaken, we could strengthen the barriers again, so they want to destroy us before that happens." As if summoned by his words, new alarms began sounding. This time, the emergency was not at the edge of the system, but right at the academy itself. Through the laboratory windows, they could see reality literally tearing open above the main training grounds. Unlike the small probes from before, what emerged from this rift was massive and clearly hostile. The creature defied description. It seemed to be made of living darkness that moved independently of physical laws. Parts of it existed in normal space, while other parts flickered in and out of visibility. Most terrifying of all, wherever it touched the ground, that area simply ceased to exist. "All cadets to emergency shelters," Commander Veltar ordered through the Academy's communication system. This is not a drill. But even as students and staff ran for safety, the conventional weapons of the Academy guards had no effect on the creature. Energy blasts passed through it harmlessly, while physical projectiles simply disappeared into its dark mass. Park Soo-hyun was leading a group of younger cadets toward the nearest shelter when the creature turned its attention toward them. The very air around them began to dissolve as reality broke down in the entity's presence. From the laboratory window, Ji-won watched his best friend about to be erased from existence. Every instinct screamed at him to act regardless of the consequences. He didn't walk to the scene. He was simply there. Having moved through space in a way that bypassed distance entirely, the creature paused its advance and focused its alien attention on him. "Get everyone out of here," Ji-won called to Soo-hyun without taking his eyes off the entity. "I'm not leaving you alone with that thing," Soo-hyun replied. "You have to. This is what I was meant to do." The creature attacked with tendrils of pure nothingness that would have unmade any normal being they touched. But when they reached Ji-won, something extraordinary happened. Light erupted from his hands, not normal light, but something that existed on frequencies beyond visible spectrum. The creature recoiled as the light burned away parts of its form. For the first time since emerging from the rift, it seemed genuinely threatened. Ji-won pressed his advantage, somehow knowing exactly what to do. He reached into the quantum foundation of reality itself and began weaving new patterns. The rift above them started to close as he reinforced the barriers between dimensions, but the effort was enormous. With each second that passed, Ji-won felt more of his humanity slipping away. His perception of time and space became alien, and he began to understand concepts that no mortal mind was meant to grasp. The creature made one final desperate attack, pouring all its remaining energy into breaking through Ji-won's defenses. The collision between forces of creation and destruction lit up the sky like a second sun. When the light faded, the creature was gone, and the rift was sealed. Ji-won stood alone in a circle of perfectly normal grass, but he was no longer entirely the same person who had entered the academy weeks before. Soo-hyun approached carefully. "Ji-won, are you okay?" Ji-won turned to look at his friend, and Soo-hyun saw depths in his eyes that hadn't been there before. For just a moment, it seemed like Ji-won was looking at him from across vast distances of time and space. Then the moment passed, and Ji-won smiled with an expression that was still recognizably human. "I'm still me, Soo-hyun, but I'm also becoming something more." In the laboratory, Dr. Kang watched her instruments record impossible readings. Ji-won's energy signature now matched theoretical predictions for precursor-level beings. The transformation was accelerating. Commander Veltar received another urgent communication. This time it was from Earth's government, reporting that humans across the planet were beginning to manifest unusual abilities. The age of the flame bearers had truly begun, but the greatest challenges still lay ahead. 2 weeks had passed since the creature's attack, and the galaxy was in chaos. Reports flooded in from across known space. Entire star systems were disappearing. Reality storms raged through shipping lanes, and ancient ruins were activating after millions of years of silence. On Nexus Prime, the Academy had transformed into a military command center. Representatives from dozens of species worked frantically to coordinate a response to threats that conventional forces couldn't even see, let alone fight. Dr. Kang stood before a gathering of the galaxy's greatest minds, sharing discoveries that challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe. "The entity that attacked our academy was not just another hostile alien," she began, displaying holographic images of the creature. "According to precursor records, it was a scout from something called the Void Collective." High Counselor Thexara, attending via secure communication, leaned forward with interest. "Explain this Void Collective, Doctor. They're not from our universe at all. They existed in the reality that came before ours, before the Big Bang created our current spacetime." Dr. Kang's voice grew grim. "When our universe began, it didn't replace the old one completely. Fragments of that previous reality survived in the spaces between dimensions. Commander Veltar studied the data with growing alarm. You're saying these entities predate creation itself?" "More than that. They want to undo creation. Their goal is to return everything to the primordial void that existed before any universe began." In another part of the academy, Ji-won worked with Kim Tae-hyung and Yoon Sung-hee to develop their awakening abilities. The three humans had formed a close bond, united by their shared transformation and the terrible responsibility it brought. "Try to sense the quantum patterns around the training dummy," Ji-won instructed Tae-hyung. Don't use your eyes. Use the deeper sight. Taehyung concentrated hard, his face tight with effort. Slowly, his perception shifted. The solid training dummy became a complex web of energy patterns, held together by forces he was only beginning to understand. I can see it, he whispered in amazement. It's like looking at the blueprint of reality itself. Seung-hee, meanwhile, was learning to manipulate those patterns on a small scale. She could make objects heavier or lighter, change their temperature, even alter their basic properties. Her abilities were growing stronger each day. The power is getting easier to control, she reported. But sometimes I feel like I'm losing touch with normal human experience. Ji-won nodded with understanding. I know what you mean. The more we use these abilities, the more we see reality from a cosmic perspective. It's hard to care about everyday problems when you can perceive the fundamental structure of existence. Park Soo-hyun, who had been observing their training, spoke up. Is that what happened to the precursors? They became so powerful that they stopped caring about mortal concerns? Maybe, Ji-won admitted. The knowledge that comes with this power can be overwhelming. But we have something the precursors might not have had. What's that? Each other. Human connections that keep us grounded. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent summons. Dr. Kang had made a crucial discovery in the deepest precursor archives, and she needed to share it immediately. In the main briefing room, gathered leaders watched as Dr. Kang revealed the full scope of the ancient war. The precursors didn't just fight the Void Collective, she announced. They fought them for over 1 million years across multiple galaxies. The war was so devastating that it reshaped the fundamental laws of physics. She displayed images of ancient battlefields where reality itself bore scars from cosmic-level combat. The precursors won, but the victory required them to ascend beyond physical existence. They became living embodiments of the forces that hold the universe together. And now the barriers they created are failing, Commander Veltar observed. Yes, but there's more. I found detailed records of the enemy's capabilities. Dr. Kang's expression grew dark. The Void Collective isn't just trying to break through randomly. They've been influencing galactic politics for centuries, engineering conflicts and preventing species from developing unity. High Counselor Thexara's image flickered with alarm. What do you mean? Every major war in galactic history, every failed alliance, every species that turned to isolation instead of cooperation. The collective has been subtly guiding events to keep us divided and weak. The implications were staggering. The assembled leaders realized that their greatest conflicts might have been orchestrated by an enemy that existed outside reality itself. There's something else, Dr. Kang continued. The reason they're moving now, the reason they sent probes when Ji-won's abilities first awakened. Earth's recent contact with the galactic community wasn't random. It was the final trigger they were waiting for. Ji-won, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. They needed humanity to join the galaxy so they could identify and eliminate the flame-bearer potential before it spread. But their plan is failing, Seung-hee observed. More humans are awakening every day, which is why they're escalating to direct assault, Taehyung added grimly. As if summoned by their words, new emergency alerts began flooding the command center. This time, the attacks weren't isolated incidents. Void entities were breaking through at 17 different locations simultaneously, each one more powerful than the scout that had attacked the academy. The largest breach was forming directly above Earth itself. They're targeting the source, Ji-won realized. If they can corrupt or destroy humanity before we fully awaken, they'll have eliminated their greatest threat. Commander Veltar began coordinating defensive forces, but they all knew that conventional weapons would be useless against entities that existed partially outside reality. We need to get you 3 to Earth immediately, Dr. Kang declared. You're the only ones who can fight these things effectively. But Ji-won was already shaking his head. It's too late for evacuation. Look at the energy readings. On the display screens they could see massive rifts opening not just near Earth but throughout the galaxy. The final assault had begun and it was happening everywhere at once. The Void Collective has been preparing for this moment for millions of years, Ji-won continued. They know exactly how to fight flame bearers because they've done it before. Then how do we win? Soo-hyun asked. Ji-won looked at his human companions, then at the assembled galactic leaders. An idea was forming in his mind, something that the whispers from his awakened memory suggested might be possible. The precursors won by ascending beyond mortality. They became too powerful for the Void Collective to destroy, but they also became too removed from reality to fully seal the barriers. And your point is, we don't ascend. We stay human, but we share the power. Instead of a few godlike beings, we create a network of flame bearers across multiple species. Dr. Kang's eyes widened as she understood the implications. Distribute the power among many instead of concentrating it in a few. The collective strength would be enormous, but each individual would retain their connection to mortal existence. Can it be done? Commander Veltar asked. Jiwan looked out at the chaos erupting across the galaxy as reality storms raged, and entire systems vanished into nothingness. We're about to find out. Because if we can't make it work, this universe is about to join all the others that the Void Collective has already erased. The greatest battle in cosmic history was about to begin, and the fate of all existence hung in the balance. The Academy shook under the force of reality storms as massive rifts tore open across the galaxy. Through the windows of the command center, they could see the sky itself fracturing like broken glass. Each crack revealed glimpses of the void beyond, where entities of living darkness waited to pour through. Jiwan stood at the center of it all, his human appearance beginning to shift as cosmic forces flowed through him. His eyes now held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies, and when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that touched dimensions beyond normal hearing. The largest breach is stabilizing above Earth, Dr. Kang reported, her instruments struggling to measure energies that exceeded their design limits. The entity coming through is massive. It's not just a scout or soldier. This is one of their commanders. On the display screens, they could see the creature emerging from the rift. It was the size of a small moon, composed of twisted space-time that hurt to look at directly. Where it moved, entire sections of reality simply stopped existing. Earth's defense forces are engaging, Commander Veltar announced, but their weapons are having no effect. Kim Tae-hyung and Yoon Sung-hee stood beside Jiwan, their own transformations accelerating as they prepared for battle. Tae-hyung's ability to see energy patterns now extended across star systems, while Sung-hee could manipulate matter on a molecular level. We can't fight something that size from here, Sung-hee observed. We need to get closer. No, Jiwan replied, his voice carrying strange echoes. Distance doesn't matter at this level. What matters is understanding. He closed his eyes and reached out with senses that transcended physical space. Instantly, he could perceive every rift, every void entity, every point where reality was under attack. The scope of the assault was beyond imagination. They're not just trying to destroy our galaxy, he realized. They're unmaking the fundamental constants that allow matter and energy to exist. If they succeed, the damage will spread to every parallel universe. Every alternate timeline. Park Soo-hyun, standing with the other non-enhanced humans, felt helpless as he watched his friends become something beyond mortal comprehension. Is there anything the rest of us can do? Dr. Kang looked up from her research station. Actually, yes. I've been analyzing the precursor protocols for awakening flame-bearer abilities. The process can be accelerated under extreme circumstances. What kind of circumstances? Commander Veltar asked. Life or death situations where normal beings are exposed to cosmic-level energies. She gestured toward the chaos outside. Like now. Jiwan turned his attention back to his friends, seeing them with vision that penetrated to their quantum foundation. She's right. All of you have the potential. Most galactic species do, just in different ways. But the risk, Dr. Kang warned. Forced awakening could burn out your nervous systems or drive you insane. The precursors spent years preparing their subjects. We don't have years, Soo-hyun replied firmly. If our friends are going to face cosmic horrors, they shouldn't do it alone. The decision was made quickly. Using knowledge downloaded from the precursor archives, Dr. Kang began the awakening process for the other cadets and officers. The procedure was dangerous and painful, but one by one, beings from across the galaxy began to manifest flame-bearer abilities. Commander Veltar was among the first to successfully awaken. His Althorian physiology adapted well to cosmic energies, and he found he could perceive and manipulate gravitational fields directly. Park Soo-hyun's awakening was more difficult. His human nervous system wasn't naturally equipped for cosmic awareness, and for several terrifying minutes it seemed like the process might kill him. But with Jiwan's help stabilizing his transformation, He emerged with the ability to create zones of absolute stability in reality. One by one, cadets from dozens of species joined the growing network of flame-bearers. Each brought unique abilities based on their biology and psychology. The crystalline Veldani could store and channel cosmic energy like living batteries. The energy-based Luminar could exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions. The aquatic Korthek developed the ability to flow through solid matter like water, but the awakening process was taking time they didn't have. The massive entity above Earth had begun its work of unmaking that sector of space. Entire solar systems were disappearing as reality collapsed inward. "I have to go now," Jiwan announced, his form beginning to blur as he prepared to transcend physical space. "The others aren't ready yet, and Earth won't survive another few minutes." "Wait," Dr. Kang called. "If you confront that entity alone, you'll have to use enough power to risk losing your humanity completely. You could become like the precursors, too advanced to relate to mortal existence." Jiwan paused, torn between the need to act and the fear of losing everything that made him human. In that moment of hesitation, he felt a familiar presence beside him. Soo-hyun had managed to project part of his consciousness across space, using his new stability powers to anchor Jiwan's humanity, even at cosmic distances. "You don't have to choose between saving the universe and staying human," Soo-hyun said. "We'll be your anchor, all of us." Around the command center, the other newly awakened flame-bearers formed a mental network with Jiwan at its center. Each one contributed their unique abilities while helping to keep him grounded in mortal concerns. With this support, Jiwan felt confident enough to act. He didn't just travel to Earth, he existed there instantly, manifesting in orbit near the massive void entity that was systematically erasing the homeworld of humanity. The creature turned its alien attention toward him, recognizing the threat he represented. When it spoke, its voice was the sound of civilizations dying and universes ending. "Flame-bearer," it said in concepts that bypassed language entirely. "You are too late. The awakening you represent was foreseen and planned for. We know how to unmake your kind." "Maybe," Jiwan replied, drawing power from the network of beings supporting him across the galaxy, "but you've never faced us working together before." The battle that followed defied description. It took place simultaneously across multiple dimensions, with forces that could reshape the laws of physics clashing in patterns that created new forms of matter and energy. Jiwan found himself fighting not just the massive entity, but the accumulated despair and emptiness that it represented. The Void Collective wasn't just trying to destroy existence. They were trying to prove that existence itself was meaningless. But every time the cosmic emptiness threatened to overwhelm him, he felt the support of his human friends and alien allies. Their shared determination to protect life and meaning gave him strength that pure power alone could never provide. The turning point came when Jiwan realized he didn't need to destroy the entity, just redirect its energy back toward the void it came from. Using techniques that combined precursor knowledge with human intuition, he began weaving new patterns in the quantum foundation of reality. Instead of sealing the rift above Earth, he transformed it into a gateway that pulled the void entities back to their own realm. But the effort required was enormous, demanding more power than any individual flame-bearer should attempt to channel. That's when the network saved him. Taehyung and Sungyi added their strength to his. Commander Veltar stabilized the gravitational effects. Park Soo-hyun anchored the entire process in stable reality. Across the galaxy, every awakened flame-bearer contributed what they could. The collective effort became something greater than the sum of its parts. A demonstration of the power that came from unity rather than individual transcendence. The massive entity fought desperately as it was pulled back through the rift, but it could not overcome the combined will of beings who chose cooperation over isolation, meaning over emptiness. As the last of the void forces retreated and the rifts began to close, Jiwan felt his humanity reasserting itself. He was still cosmically aware, still capable of manipulating fundamental forces, but he remained recognizably the young man who had nervously stepped through the Academy scanner. The immediate battle was won, but as the network of flame-bearers surveyed the damage across the galaxy, they realized their work was just beginning. 6 months after the Great Battle, the galaxy was still healing from wounds that went deeper than mere physical damage. Entire star systems had to be rebuilt from quantum foundations up, and reality itself bore scars that would take millennia to fully fade. but something new had been born from the crisis. The Academy on Nexus Prime had evolved into the headquarters of the Flamebearer Corps, an organization unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Jiwan stood in his new office, looking out at training grounds where beings from hundreds of species learned to work together, using abilities that transcended the normal laws of physics. The sight still amazed him sometimes. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Park Soo-hyun entered, carrying reports from the Outer Rim territories. The reconstruction efforts in the Vega sector are ahead of schedule, Soo-hyun reported, setting down his tablet. The new Flamebearer teams are getting better at reality stabilization work. Jiwan nodded with satisfaction. And the monitoring stations? All operational. If the Void Collective tries to break through again, we'll detect it immediately. Soo-hyun paused, studying his friend's face. You're worried about something else, aren't you? Jiwan sighed and turned from the window. Despite his cosmic awareness, he still looked remarkably human. The network approach to Flamebearer abilities had allowed him to retain his essential nature, while gaining incredible power. The Galactic Council meeting is tomorrow, Jiwan said. Some species are getting nervous about having so many reality-manipulating beings in one organization. They're afraid of us? Can you blame them? We literally have the power to remake the fundamental structure of the universe. In the wrong hands, that could be more dangerous than the Void Collective ever was. Before Soo-hyun could respond, Dr. Kang entered the office. Her research had earned her the position of Chief Science Officer for the Flamebearer Corps, and she looked both excited and concerned. Jiwan, we have a situation, she announced. The long-range sensors are detecting something at the edge of our galaxy. It's not void entities, but it's definitely artificial and incredibly old. They hurried to the main operations center, where Kim Tae-hyung was coordinating with observation posts across the galaxy. His abilities had developed to the point where he could perceive energy patterns across vast distances. It's massive, Tae-hyung reported. Easily the size of a small planet, but it's not solid matter. The structure seems to be made of crystallized time and organized space. Yoon Sung-hee looked up from her analysis station. The energy signatures match theoretical predictions for precursor technology. But these readings are unlike anything in their known archives. On the main display screen, they could see a blurry image of the mysterious object. It moved slowly but purposefully, clearly under intelligent control. Could it be survivors? Soo-hyun asked. Precursors who didn't ascend beyond physical existence? Dr. Kang shook her head. The energy patterns are wrong for biological beings, even enhanced ones. This is something else entirely. Commander Veltar, who now served as military liaison to the Flamebearer Corps, studied the tactical implications. Should we consider it a threat? Not yet, Jiwan decided. Send a diplomatic probe. If these are precursor constructs, they might have information we need. The response came within hours, transmitted on frequencies that only Flamebearer-enhanced beings could perceive. The message was complex, containing layers of meaning that required cosmic awareness to fully understand. Greetings, inheritors of the flame, the message began. We are the archive keepers, left behind to guard knowledge and guide those who would follow our path. Your victory over the Void Collective has proven your worthiness to receive our final gift. The massive construct approached Nexus Prime slowly, its arrival causing reality fluctuations that the Flamebearer Corps had to actively stabilize. When it finally came to rest in orbit, it sent down a smaller vessel carrying information that would change everything. The archive keepers were not living beings but incredibly advanced, artificial intelligences created by the precursors in their final years. Their purpose was to preserve knowledge and assist future Flamebearer civilizations when they emerged. The Void Collective was not the only threat the precursors faced, the lead archive keeper explained to the assembled leadership. Its form was a shifting pattern of light and geometry that spoke directly to their enhanced minds. There are other challenges that await civilizations who gain the power to manipulate fundamental forces. The temptation to remake reality according to personal desires. The gradual loss of empathy as beings become too powerful to relate to normal existence. The inevitable conflicts between different groups of enhanced beings. Dr. Kang leaned forward with interest. How did the precursors handle these problems? They didn't successfully. That is why they chose ascension rather than finding a better balance. The archive keeper's form pulsed with something like sadness, but your approach shows promise. The network model you developed during the crisis maintains individual identity while sharing power. This may be the key to avoiding our mistakes. Over the following weeks, the archive keepers shared knowledge that advanced the Flamebearer Corps by centuries. New training techniques that helped enhanced beings maintain their empathy and connection to normal existence. Technologies for detecting and preventing the misuse of cosmic abilities. Methods for gradually awakening Flamebearer potential in willing volunteers from any species. But perhaps most importantly, they revealed that Earth and humanity were not unique. Throughout the galaxy, there were dozens of species with similar potential, waiting for the right circumstances to awaken. The precursors planted seeds of possibility throughout the cosmos, the archive keeper explained. Humanity was simply the first to bloom under the right conditions. But others will follow. The implications were staggering. Rather than being a small organization of exceptional individuals, the Flamebearer Corps could become a galaxy-wide network of enhanced beings working together to protect and guide normal civilization. 3 months later, Jiwan stood once again in the scanner room where his journey had begun. But now, instead of the ancient scanner, there was a new device built using combined precursor and modern technology. A new group of cadets waited nervously for their turn. Among them was Choi Minji, a young human who had volunteered for the Advanced Awakening program after showing exceptional promise in standard tests. As she stepped through the scanning arch, the device hummed with familiar energy, but instead of the chaotic overload that had marked Jiwan's first encounter, the scanner operated smoothly and efficiently. The display showed clear, readable text. Flamebearer potential confirmed, training authorized. Park Soo-hyun, now a senior instructor, smiled as he watched the young woman's eyes widen with wonder. Welcome to the Corps, Cadet Choi. Your real training starts now. In his director's office, Jiwan felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The network he had helped create was growing stronger every day. Enhanced beings from hundreds of species worked together to repair the damage from the Void War, while preparing for whatever challenges the future might bring. The whispers in his mind, which had once carried warnings of cosmic threats, now brought reports of new discoveries, successful missions, and the gradual healing of a galaxy that had faced annihilation. Outside his window, the training grounds bustled with activity. Feldani cadets practiced energy manipulation alongside human volunteers, learning reality stabilization. Cortec instructors taught dimensional theory to mixed classes of species that had once been enemies. Dr. Kang appeared in his doorway, tablet in hand as always. The monthly reports are ready, she announced. Flamebearer recruitment is up 20% across all sectors. Reality stability readings are at their highest levels since before the war, and the deep space monitoring stations report no signs of void collective activity. Any problems to address? The usual growing pains. Some newly awakened beings are struggling with the responsibility that comes with cosmic awareness, but the peer support networks are handling most issues before they become serious. Jiwan nodded thoughtfully. The archive keepers were right. Power without empathy is the path to becoming another threat rather than a protector. As the twin suns of Nexus Prime sat behind the Academy buildings, Jiwan reflected on how much had changed since that nervous young man had stepped through the ancient scanner. He had gained abilities that let him perceive the fundamental structure of reality itself. But more importantly, he had learned that true strength came from working with others rather than transcending them. The Flamebearer Corps had become more than a military organization. It was a community of enhanced beings who had chosen to remain connected to normal existence while using their abilities to protect and guide the galaxy. In the scanner room, the last cadet of the day completed her evaluation. Commander Veltar, his own cosmic awareness now as natural as breathing, read the results with satisfaction. Flamebearer potential confirmed, he announced. The Academy welcomes another guardian to our ranks. As the newly awakened cadet looked around with enhanced vision that could perceive dimensions beyond normal space, she saw the same thing that Jiwan had discovered months before. She was no longer just an individual being, but part of something larger and more meaningful than herself.